And welcome to the Tech Dr. Tech Show, where myself, Pauline, Roche, and Sweyn Hunter, and occasional guests guide you through the world of online communications in a show which is the brainchild of the late, great, and sadly missed internet evangelist John Popham. Anyway, let's check on the weather. How has the weather been where you are, Sweyn, this week?
It's a bit overcast, a bit cloudy. It's been raining during the night. So, yeah, it's normal for this time of year.
Here in Birmingham, well, I've got the heating on, so that tells you a lot. The ground is actually dry, and I have been able to get out walking and pottering in the garden earlier on, so it's adequate. But I'm back in fleeces, and it's that kind of weather. So definitely getting autumnal, even though I'm hanging on to August with every fiber of my being because it's my birthday month and I want to hang on to it. And I'm going for a swim tonight with friends, so that'll be nice.
That'll be nice, yeah.
And I went for a swim yesterday in a river in Warwickshire.
In a river, my goodness.
Yes, so shout out for Ali and Birgit. It was the Birgit has a thermometer thing for the water. She was measuring it, and it had dropped a couple of degrees since the last time she was in, which was about a week ago. So it is dropping, but it's still exhilarating to be in fresh water.
Great stuff. Great stuff.
So a couple of things we've picked up for this time of the year in September. Apparently, it's National Friendship Month. This was something Sweyn picked up, and a crowd called the Oddfellows.co.uk have been celebrating friendship for over 200 years by bringing people together to enjoy the brighter side of life, which we hope to do a bit of as well. And on screen now, Sweyn's got the Oddfellows Friendship Month 2021. With a nice picture there of some people enjoying themselves. So according to the website, friendship is at the very heart of their organization. So every September, they get together to highlight how important it is to have friends around you that not only make you laugh, but also have your back. Recognizing loneliness is a growing problem in the UK. More than 9 million people of all ages say they're lonely either often or always, according to research by the Co-op and the British Red Cross. So Friendship Month is one way in which we can play our part in bringing communities closer together, providing easy ways for people of all ages to socialise by hosting fun events and activities nationwide. Last year, branches hosted over 170 exciting events up and down the country, everything from fun-filled tea parties and lunches to friendship walks and quiz nights. So you can search for what's happening in your area using their events finder. They say we all know how daunting those first steps to expanding your social circle can be. If you're feeling in need of a little confidence boost, check out their top tips for making friends by downloading our brand new guide to making friends. Well, how do you feel about that, Sweyn? Do you need a guide to making friends, or are you a natural friend maker?
I'm not a natural friend maker, I must say. I like to do things with other people, like this show or events or whatever, but I'm a bit awkward when it comes to just sitting around being friendly. So I like the look of this because it does give some structure. It gives some group settings where you can go meet people.
Yeah.
And even those of us who are a bit difficult at making friends, we need to expose ourselves to people in the nicest possible way, and make sure that we're keeping ourselves healthy by interacting with lots of different people through any. So this is a great opportunity for people who might want to get out there and do that sort of thing. It's the special month for it this month, so that's even better.
Very good. Yeah, I'm happy to say I've been making friends in the place where I'm living now, and I made a new friend recently. We've exchanged numbers now, and we're putting little notes into our post boxes. We're in the same house, same building, but it's nice to get a little note in the mornings to say hi, and so that's nice to do. I'd say I'm more of a natural friend maker. I do put myself out there and say hello to people of all shapes and sizes and backgrounds, and it's so far I've not been burned, so I recommend it. Yeah. So September is also the Festival of Learning Have a Go month, and this is another one that Sweyn picked up, festivaloflearning.org.uk, and their mission is to highlight the benefits of learning, celebrate achievements of adults who have used learning to transform their lives, and encourage everyone to embrace lifelong learning. Apparently, it's the biggest celebration of lifelong learning in England, this festival, and their aim is to celebrate the benefits of lifelong learning and inspire more people to have a go at learning for themselves. So their Have a Go month is when they encourage organizations and learning providers to offer free learning activities for adults, such as taster sessions, online learning, talks or lectures, open days, and more. They also welcome organizations running free learning events for festival learning at other times of the year. So on screen, Sweyn has the website now, and they offer an events finder thing, Sweyn, where you can find out what's going on in your area?
Let's have a look.
Get involved.
Get involved.
Lifelong Learning Week,
That's
sponsorship
November.
awards.
No, it doesn't look as if
No.
there's a.
Using blog or community may show up things, but it sounds like it's one that's worth exploring.
Yes.
Adult learning skills. I'm meeting somebody from adult education next week, actually. Yeah, they do offer a lot of different things. You know, things for work, things for play. And they have an award Festival of Learning Award winners. Okay, well, that sounds like a good thing to look into as well. Yep, so we can recommend that. Okay, so moving on, we look as well at what's happening around this time of year and kind of things that have gone in the past. And apparently on the 29th of August in 1997, Netflix was founded by Mark Randolph and Reed Hastings in Scotts Valley, California, as an online DVD rental business. Well, DVD rental. Now there's a throwback. 97 only though. It's not that long ago.
I do remember that starting up, and that was in competition to the Blockbuster type video and DVD rental places.
And they went to the wall, but Netflix has thrived, especially during lockdown. You know.
Yes.
How the phrase Netflix and chill has become a byword, I suppose, for people just wanting to relax. Have you got Netflix? I never subscribed.
Sometimes I have Netflix and sometimes I don't. I think we've got it at the moment. I'm not sure.
I have used some of my family have had it from time to time, so I've been in there when with them. I've been sharing their access to it. My mother has had it sometimes on her iPad, but it doesn't, again, one of these things doesn't come naturally to her to just look at what you might have on Netflix as opposed to terrestrial television. She's firmly satisfied with her terrestrial television, Irish television channels. And I must say the television is very good in Ireland. I really enjoy it when I'm there, listening to homemade programs and some good acting and presenting. Okay, and another thing that we came across was on the 1st of September in 2006, Luxembourg became the first country to complete the move to all digital television broadcasting.
Oh.
So does that mean they only have digital, no analog television in Luxembourg? Must be.
That will be right. Yeah. So, we're the same now. Freeview is digital. Counts as digital.
But this implies it's all digital. There's no other. Have we no?
Well, we don't in the UK. We don't have any UHF television anymore. It's all beamed digitally as Freeview. So yeah.
Okay. So, but in 2006, Luxembourg was the first country. So, well done for small countries leading the way and things like that. And speaking of small but perfectly formed, our event, the next event that we're talking about, is the Orkney International Science Fest. Please take it away, Sweyn.
Well, the Science Festival in Orkney is normally about a week long in September. If I shared the right thing there, yes. And obviously with the pandemic, we've not been able to, we have been involved in helping out with it on and off for many years. We've not, for a second year, been able to organise any in-person events. I think we just about could have organised some, but the uncertainties in the planning period were such that we decided not to. So once again, we've got an entirely online and entirely free to access festival with dozens and dozens of events. I think there's 80 or 90 different events from between the 2nd and the 8th of September. And I should make a short plug also for the Aviation Festival, which follows on the 9th and 10th of September. Some of the events are pre-recorded films, but most, about 60, will be live talks or panels or debates or demonstrations of all sorts of things, and I can't even begin to cover the whole width of the content of the festival. It's really, there's something there for absolutely everyone, whether you like music, whether you like astrophysics, whether you want to learn the latest developments in marine renewables, which is a big thing in Orkney here. So there's people joining us from all over the world, and there's events all day and every day from the 2nd of September onwards.
Brilliant. Well, I remember last year we talked about it a lot, and it was amazing. I was just blown over by the range, and it was just fascinating. Little things that you wouldn't have thought about that much were just explained in great detail, and really, really well done. And is it paid for, Sweyn? Is it amateurs? What's the presentation?
Well, there's a mix. The standard talk for the science festival, if you like, is by a scientist who wants to display his or her work to a wider audience. So it's all in terms of public engagement of their subject and so on. So generally speaking, that will be a scientist that's employed by a university or a research establishment who has a talk to give to a general audience about their branch of science and their research, really. But we also have, the director of the festival, Howie Firth, who is from Orkney but now lives in Elgin. He's very good at finding people who have got quirky little interests in different aspects of either current science or science as it was practiced in the past, or indeed some of the events. You would have to say, why are they in a science festival? They're there because they're enjoyable musical events or whatever. There's usually some link, but you sometimes have to look quite hard for it. So there really is something for anybody, I would say. Usually you get some insight into the science behind something or other, even if there's no obvious upfront link. So it's a festival first and scientific second, I would say. Although everything's scientific in the end, you can argue.
And is it if people can't make a certain session, are they there for people to look at later on?
Yes, all this year's events will be there indefinitely on the Science Festival website in their original place in the program, or you can search for them on the Science Festival's YouTube channel. It's one of the silver linings of having to do a festival this way, is that it's easy to record and keep and make available on an ongoing basis all the events. So excuse me. So that so they'll all be there along with last year's events. There's no plan to take them down, so I'll say indefinitely.
Yeah, good. Well, it just on the blurb on the website, which you kindly shared with us, you said the year of coasts and waters runs through the programme with stories of tidal turbines and Arctic journeys, shore life and sea cliffs, and the sights and sounds of the island of Swona. Is that the right pronunciation?
Swona, yes.
Swona, with its seals and shipwreck stories. Topics range from genetics to geology, from archaeology, astrophysics, and the latest discoveries from gravitational waves. Events will cover how a Shetland man saved many lives from smallpox 2 centuries ago, and how indigenous medicines helped the Orkney men who worked at Hudson's Bay. Is that in Canada?
That's Canada.
Yeah.
Orkney was the place where ships would take on supplies and men. Last stop before Canada.
Okay.
The Hudson Bay Company.
Right. Yes, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
There will also be a chance to find out about finds at the nest of Brodgar and hear about the mathematics of the Neolithic. There'll be a link up with an international islands event on the theme of how islands worldwide might turn island waste into resources. Well, now that sounds fascinating.
Yes, there's a strand of research going on, for example, trying to extract from the sea the plastics that are in it, and even try and recycle some of that plastic.
Right.
It's a very early stage, but it's a very interesting set project.
Yeah, great. It all comes back, like we say often on the show, to libraries and the climate. We're kind of concentrating on those two things, information and climate change, and it will help us have a better world. It's also music inspired by astronomy and music inspired by Norse stories and northern landscapes. And in the festival, I meet composers whose work is influenced by environmental issues. All events are free, it says, apart from several workshops where numbers are limited, with the ticket for some including materials. And
Oh, I
it
missed
does
them.
say,
Yes, there's a
yeah.
few. I'm not actually certain if there are any of those events this year. I think that might be a hangover from last year.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not completely
Okay, doke.
certain. But
Yeah.
explore the program and find out.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. And my brother and sister-in-law are on holidays in Croatia at the moment. They're sailing. But he works the fisheries in Ireland, and she works in university in Dublin in microbiology. And I think they might find this sort of thing interesting as well, and the rest of the family as well. But my dad was a great fisherman, so he, he always had an interest in what was going on in the world generally. So yeah, I think, as you say, something for everybody. So yeah, highly recommended. Okie doke, let's move on to our stories. We have no guest today. We are hoping to have more guests in September. We've got 2, we hope, lined up for the next couple of weeks after this. But in the meantime, Sweyn and I will endeavour to bring you the latest and best news around digital inclusion, digital literacy, etc. And if you do have a story or want to come on the show yourself, Sweyn, what's the best way for people to contact us?
It is by email, I think. Let's start that again. By email, I think, at drtechshow@gmail.com. That's the best way.
Yeah, and it's doctor all spelled out.
drtechshow@gmail.com. Yes.
Great. So we would like to hear from anybody who's listening or watching. How do you think the program, is there something you've heard that you would like to know more about? We have been getting guests from some of the stories we've been covering. Like last week, we had Claudia Pagliari from a tweet that we saw. Yep. So, we can invite people on, and for the most part, no, but hardly anybody has said no so far. So,
well, if they've said no, they've had a decent excuse.
So they have. Yeah. So this was a story we picked up a few weeks ago. It was in July, actually, and the title is Being Heard While It's Being Locked Down, and it's on a website called transformingsociety.co.uk. And it's about an organization called APLE, and it's about refugees and asylum seekers. And it says APLE members are led by their experiences, and it became immediately obvious that for those living on a low income, the digital divide was already complex and reflected the intersectionality of inequality that already existed, exacerbating these and creating new inequalities. And APLE collective members from RAPAR, which is Refugee and Asylum Participatory Action Research, found that as asylum seekers, they were using over half their weekly allowance simply to communicate with legal representatives. Wow. So APLE collective members from the Poverty Truth community were facing financial premiums as a result of needing to get online to homeschool their children, but not having access to credit, and so were forced to purchase digital devices from less reputable sellers. So some APLE collective members from Thrive Teesside had no access to digital devices at all and were unable to get public health information or basic supplies as they were fearful of leaving the house. And these examples of digital exclusion are the foundation of something broader. For to be digitally excluded, they say, is to be silenced. So if they go on to say, if you've used all your data accessing websites to homeschool your daughter, if you used all your weekly allowance speaking to your solicitor to progress your asylum case, then you don't have any data left to engage in activism. So the bottom line for them is, in a lockdown world, those who are digitally excluded are silenced. So I have approached APLE asking if they would like to come on the show to talk more about this. This is a collective that began activism online, and they, hopefully would like to continue, but obviously they're limited by what they can afford to pay for and the data they have access to. So if anybody wants to help with that, please contact APLE, APLE, or if we can help, we get in touch with people, we certainly would do that. Yeah, so a group we haven't had much from, actually. We might actually concentrate on getting somebody from a refugee.
I'm trying to find what APLE stands for, but I can't quite see it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
I'll keep looking for that.
It was
might come back to you on that one.
The story. Yeah. Okay. So this was the next one is a tweet from someone whose Twitter handle is Kel Fogarty in Ireland, and I tweeted something to her, I think, a while ago, and she in a series. The tweet was from Una Min Kavanagh, who's another Irish woman, and she tweeted, "Tell me one thing you're grateful for this morning." And Kel Fogarty's response was, "YouTube showing me how to open the drain pump on my washing machine." So it was a really nice story, as I said in my responding tweet to her, which is under that one, is the kind of thing we'd like to highlight on the Dr. Tech Show. That people do learn an awful lot from YouTube about how to do things. It is the second most popular search engine after the one beginning with G. So all sorts of things. Have you recently learned anything on YouTube, Sweyn?
I constantly look things up on YouTube when things are broken. I've become much more willing to grab a screwdriver and start opening things up, see if I can fix them since YouTube came along. Although the last thing I tried to fix was a coffee grinder. I couldn't work out why it wasn't coming on, and I tried everything and searched YouTube, and I looked for a manual on YouTube online and everything. And eventually I found a video to show how to check the micro switches, and it turned out that I hadn't put the cap on the little hopper thing. As simple as that. I had put the cap down somewhere else in the kitchen, and unless the cap is on and the hopper thing is in place, it won't start. Otherwise, it might grind your fingers. So there was no actual repair needed. But it did, in a way, help me fix the problem, which was I couldn't grind my coffee.
Yeah, actually, I should have looked on YouTube. I had a situation recently where Cara, my friend, gave me a fan. That came in 3 parts, except to me it seemed to be the middle part was missing, and then over the weekend she actually found the middle part stuffed into one of the other parts anyway, and then we spent a couple of minutes trying to put it back together again, and she succeeded, so I'm grateful to her. But we didn't look on YouTube to look for any possible other fixes, so that was a time when I didn't look and I could have looked. But everything and anything, people have made the most amazing, shall we say, we won't say bizarre, amazing videos of little things and big things that can help anybody do what they want to do. So we encourage people to look on YouTube for solutions. Okay, so the next story is about LOTI, which is the London Organisation of Technology and Innovation, I think. Office, that's right.
Technology and Innovation, yes.
That's right.
This one's on the screen, so that's easy.
Oh, okay, good. And this is from ukauthority.com, and the story is about LOTI looking at digital inclusion in temporary accommodation, and they were or are looking for support in a discovery project to run from late September to December, saying it wants to identify a set of recommended interventions to ensure the residents of hostels are not digitally excluded. One of the priorities identified by London boroughs is to tackle digital exclusion from people living in temporary accommodation, which often lacks Wi-Fi. And there are also problems around unaffordable broadband contracts, families having shared devices, and being disconnected from support networks. So that looks like something. I don't know whether this was in 11th of August. It was advertised, or was the story was out. So they may have found their provider already, but they then were looking for they had published a market notice for support in this discovery project. So this sounds like something we might want to come back to, Sweyn, when they have succeeded in implementing or finding out more about people in that situation.
Yes, it's an interesting one, and it just goes to show there's always more to do and more use cases for digital exclusion than we can ever imagine. I found what APLE stood for that story earlier. It stands for Addressing Poverty with Lived Experience. APLE.
Oh, great. So yeah, well, now I even want them to come on. I want them to come on the program even more now.
Sure.
That sounds wonderful. Yeah. So I'll follow up on the email that I sent, I think, to a general email address, and see if somebody would like to come on and talk about that, because it does sound like, again, it's it's niches. We're finding, we knew the overall picture, and now we're finding more niches, geographic niches, and groups, community niche groups. So we'd like to hear more from any of those. Moving on again, we have a story from a website called workplaceinsight.net, and the headline is, "We need to rethink the role of technology in corporate well-being." And from this story, we picked up that employers nationwide are taking steps to improve employee well-being, reduce stress, and improve mental health. And for many, they are well-meaning. For example, banning work emails during certain hours of the day, encouraging employees to switch off. However, the risk of blanket policies like this, they say, is that they don't work for everyone. And a recent study from the University of Sussex even found banning out-of-hours emails can have a detrimental impact on employee well-being, restricting opportunities for truly flexible working and taking away a sense of control and autonomy. So it says one of the key benefits of incorporating digital interventions into a wellbeing strategy is the ability to create data that informs interventions. Traditional blanket wellbeing policies often leave employees feeling disengaged, but data-led interventions enable them to receive support for their symptoms in a way that suits them. Well, that sounds very sensible. And the kind of thing, again,
it's another example of you can do things in a way that helps people, or you can do things in a way that does the opposite. And that's a really interesting story of exactly that.
Yeah. Yes, it is. And it's the kind of thing that seems like a no-brainer. Don't respond to your emails outside of work hours. And I know I have said that to people I work with. But this has made me think that it is more about finding the balance and what works for you. So we need to ask individuals what works for them, and then encourage them to follow that.
If you've got a worker who you have not you, Pauline, I mean, if there is a worker somewhere who has been allowed to become completely overwhelmed, then suddenly telling them not to check their emails during outside working hours is probably in the short term going to make things worse, because it reduces the amount of stuff so it's probably, as usual, saying don't try to apply a technical fix to something that's not a technical problem. And you can say that over and over again in all sorts of different sectors. So excuse me, I want to cough.
Okay. And it kind of reminds us as well about using data that informs the interventions. We all know that a lot of data is collected, and it's about acting sensibly on that data. Even if it's just about one person, it could make a big difference. So use data, not act on data outside of talking to somebody as well, but use it to help make decisions. Okay, this is one I came across about a webinar that's coming up, a tweet by Digital Communities Wales, and this is a webinar designed to equip people with the skills to make choices when using the internet. So this sounds like a very sensible, leading on a little bit from what we've just been saying, really. This is a webinar that's going to be on at 10 a.m. on the 1st of September, so on Wednesday. Intending to provide skills in thought and critical analysis to help us make decisive choices when navigating the internet. So the blurb, when you go to the link, it says this webinar will provide an overview of different types of websites you may encounter using the internet and what that could mean for the content you experience. Discuss the role of social media and the positive and negative impact of these platforms for information sharing. Discuss critical thinking skills and how to spot a fake news article and how to spot a fake or untrustworthy email. So that all sounds like very useful stuff to have access to. And I think that this might be for Welsh people only, because when I clicked on the link, Sweyn, I think it asked you to identify which area in Wales you're from. That Buffalo link on the tweet. Sweyn's just bringing it up on screen now. Yeah, so if you look at the webinar registration, if you scroll down, it asks you what county you're from. So this is for Welsh people only, but I think anybody who thought this was a useful thing to do could contact DC Wales and ask them about how they did this, whether the webinar could be repeated.
Yeah,
sure, they wouldn't refuse you.
It may even be limited to people, to certain sectors, because I see that the organisation is you're required to say what your organisation is. That sometimes means that there's an event is restricted to specific sectors. But as you say, no harm in getting in touch and seeing if they would allow visitors. I've gone to the wrong story again. There we are. Yeah. I was just sitting here as you were talking, Pauline, wondering why that picture was a video, but I've worked it out. It's because the question mark is cycling between a number of colours.
Yes,
so that's a 4-second video.
Well.
That's clever. That's very clever. I'm not sure if I would go to all that effort just to do that, but it's very clever.
Yeah. But it is very important, very kind of, when people do talk these days about what should be taught at schools and stuff, and I think critical analysis is one of those things that more of us think should be taught. It's not, and it's about learning to use libraries as well. It's not about what's in the library. It's how to use, the content of the library, and how to use the library to bring yourself to new worlds.
I think that focus
things.
on skills to enable you to make choices when using the internet, I think that's a very good way of putting it, because it seems to be looking at the choice of software that you might use, different types of browser, different types of social media, and then again looking at ways of spotting stuff that isn't as trustworthy as it's trying to make out. So I like the focus on, as it's kind of, you call it keeping safe, but it's focused on the choices that you're able to make when you're online.
Yeah. And again, this might be something where we can get one of the speakers to come and talk to us about what they think, because it does sound like something we could learn more from. So yeah, one of those ones I'll bookmark for finding out who's doing it and see if they'd like to come and talk to us. Actually, there is somebody from DC Wales I'm in touch with about coming on anyway about something else, so they might combine the two. Okay, moving on, we've got another tweet, information from another tweet, and this is one about promoting digital literacy, digital citizenship, and well-being for young people. And this was a tweet by Mood Movement Network, and they've got a webinar. I think it's a webinar. Yeah, well, hard to read. Yes. Anyway, it's an event on the 6th of September from 9:30 to 1 p.m. Where Dr. Sangeet Bhullar, known as the Twitter handle Sangeet, SANGEET, who's the founder of Wise Kids, which is an organization promoting digital literacy, online safety, digital citizenship, well-being for a connected world, and they do programs for young people, parents, and professionals. And Sangeet will introduce people who attend this event to the themes of digital literacy and digital citizenship for young people. Again, one of those things you think, I'd really like to do that, because it'd be good to hear what their thoughts are about starting digital literacy with young people, because again, we've talked about this before on the show. People assume that young people, because they've grown up with devices, are skillful in what they look at and how they use the internet, and it's not necessarily so. So
that's right.
Be good to see what they're talking about there. And that's on the 6th September, 9:30 to 1 p.m. And moving on to another tweet, which was a tweet by Nick Poole, who's the CEO of CILIP, the Chartered Institute of Librarians and Information Professionals. And the tweet was about what is a museum or library. And there's several tweets in this thread, actually, you could look at. And Nick said in the original tweet that a museum or library is an ongoing process of selection, filtering, interpretation, and reinterpretation. It's not a warehouse. Our function is not to accumulate cultural detritus, but to tell the story of how society changes over time, repeat ad nauseam. And I think that's both for what actually happens in a library, and because we know we need to keep saying that, because some people don't always understand how beneficial libraries and museums can be. So, and if you scroll down, Sweyn, and the other in the responses to that, someone says organic, living, breathing spaces, and Nick responded to say yes. And library museum is like an organism, breathing in the carbon dioxide of our culture and giving us back oxygen, snatching at inspiration. So Nick can be very poetic, and I think that's a good description. Someone's asking about where we preserve our history and saying we need a sequence of our changes to understand ourselves and our altering humanness. And someone else replies, that's an archive. So yeah, so it's good to again talk about libraries on this show and see that they're living, breathing organisms.
I think there's a great focus again on libraries and museums as places where things happen, not places where things are stored.
Yes.
And I think
definitely
processes and the organic nature of the social interchange that goes on in libraries and also in museums, it's really important to focus on that. Otherwise, you really do end up with a building full of disconnected stuff that isn't as much help to everyone as it might be.
Yeah, so maybe that's another potential visitor for us to talk to about what's happening. We have had librarians on before, but it's always good to revisit what's happening and find out what's happening.
By the way, I just say a word for archives. I suspect archivists would make a similar claim about archives.
Yeah,
But anyway, it's detail.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they're all the same family, you know, so
Yeah.
it's good to connect. Okay, we're moving on to SCVO, Scottish Council of Voluntary Organisations, and the SCQF, which is the, if you bring it up on screen, I'll be able to tell you what it is, the Scottish Credit and Qualifications Framework. Yeah, so they are talking to us about digital inclusion programs in this blog post. And as we know, SCVO has been working on the digital inclusion agenda for about 8 years, with a focus on supporting the voluntary sector to embed digital inclusion in core service delivery. And they have worked with Glasgow Kelvin College to offer a range of free qualifications, which will help to address some of the challenges of digital inclusion in Scotland's communities. So on screen, we have the 3 courses that they're offering with credits. And the first one is a certificate in digital inclusion support, which is offered at SCQF level 4. Essential skills for digital champions, which is offered at SCQF level 6. And then finally, digital inclusion project management, which is offered at SCQF level 8. And they have different credit points between them, but it sounds like some really useful training that could be done for people coming into or new to this work. They're saying in the article, digital has helped us stay connected to one another, enable us to access services and reliable public health information. It's often those working in frontline services that help build the skills and confidence of those who are digitally excluded. And they call these people digital champions, as we know, and they embed digital skills in the core support they provide in their communities. And so the qualifications have been created to formally recognise the amazing work digital champions are doing across Scotland. And of course, we know they're active across the whole of the UK, but this is just for Scottish people. So it's good to see that happening and kind of people getting credit for the courses that they're doing. Some of them, again, sound very interesting and something I'd like to do. So I'll perhaps contact them and see if they're being offered in other parts of the UK.
I think there's a very telling comment there as well, that a bit further down it says, our previous work at SCVO has taught us that well-intentioned attempts to promote digital inclusion can fail if there isn't a commitment at senior management level that helps create the culture to sustain this work. And that's certainly a lesson that's learned over and over again in all sorts of sectors, that 2 things: you need management to really see what's going on and see what's required, and you also need to make sure that you don't ghettoize the skills and knowledge about digital inclusion, because really the ideas of digital inclusion should inform almost everything that happens in an organization these days, almost no matter what it's doing. Everyone needs to understand that what they do can either include or exclude people, and hopefully these sorts of qualifications for professionals and others will mean that more and more people understand that.
Yeah, so I'll be, as I say, talking to them about, because I think they could be useful for some of the people I'll be working with in Northfield and in Birmingham. So, and the more we share, the better. Okay, so this was the next one is a story I picked up about Grameen Impact Ventures. And this is in India, but as we know, we can learn a lot from other countries. And they made it to the finals of the MIT Solve Digital Inclusion Challenge, which is an annual, I think, challenge from MIT in the US. And Grameen Impact Ventures, this organization, combines the power of digital platforms and on-ground women working as self-employed community agents. Its tech-driven model builds digital capability and brings affordable services to the rural low-income community. And I thought this was interesting. Sorry, this is a story by RM Bureau. I thought this was interesting because it talks about learning, you know, how you can share the learning across other low tech countries, really, and communities. So it could be something that others learn from. So this Grameen Impact Ventures is a social business which was incubated by Grameen Foundation India, and it joins the rank of the top 15 finalists in this challenge organised by MIT Solve 2021. And the challenge itself seeks solutions to build an inclusive digital economy, which affords everyone an opportunity to lead a dignified and productive life with access to digital services. So GIV, Grameen Impact Ventures, emerged as one of the 15 finalists to address this challenge to build reliable channels for access to commerce, credit lines, safety nets, and saving mechanisms in remote rural areas for the underbanked informal workers and the unbanked population. That is, people who use banks, not very much or not at all, because they don't have access to or for some other reason. And GIV is also a flag bearer for India in MIT Solve as one of the only 2 Indian entries to have made it to the finals. So this underscores a remarkable journey for GIV, which was established just 2 years ago, with the aim to bring financial, digital, agriculture, and assisted e-commerce services to the low-income segments, particularly women. So it combines the power of digital platforms and trusted on-ground women working as self-employed community agents. And the description says that its agile, tech-driven model builds digital capability and brings appropriate and affordable services to the rural low-income community. The solution is scalable across most emerging economies in the world, which is why I thought it would be relevant to our listeners and readers. And the model creates self-employment for women as Grameen Mitra, that's what they're called, who serve the community members around them. Besides building their own agency and capability, they also ensure the rural communities are empowered with knowledge of digital services and can conveniently and confidently access the same. There's a human-centered design which addresses key barriers to adoption, such as awareness, appropriateness, convenience, and trust. So the founder of Grameen Impact Ventures, Pravat Lav, said that for the givers, the people who work for GIV, success is when a neo-literate, physically challenged old woman in a remote village can access digital platforms and government schemes and lead her life with hope and dignity. She says we enable the smallhold farmers to access information, inputs, and markets to increase their income and be more resilient. And since the launch, over 880 women have become self-employed as Grameen Mitras and have enabled over 162,000 transactions and onboarded over 874 customers, generating over
874,000 customers.
Excuse me. Wow, how could I miss that? Yes, 874,000 customers. And they generated over 16 crore rupees, which is equivalent to 1.6 million pounds in transactions across four districts: Nagpur, Nashik, Bandara in Maharashtra, and Nawada in Bihar, where they work. And these women entrepreneurs are transforming the rural economy through the economic inclusion of the marginalized households. And their aim, if you don't mind, is to expand its footprint to serve 25 million people by the year 2025. And I think that's brilliant. 2 years only running, and they are doing this amazing work. So, with older women, it's just fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. It's just exactly the sort of thing that needs to happen, probably all over the world in every country.
Yeah. So congratulations to Grameen for that, and to MIT Solve for pushing it forward in its prize giving, in its challenge. It hasn't won yet, but it's certainly getting a high profile, which is great. I actually looked at the challenge on the MIT website, Sweyn, and they have all kinds of, they put all their calls to action out there, and their plans and stuff like that. It's really fascinating. It's great to see that level of openness and transparency, because we can learn a lot from each other as we know, and it's good to see it where we can get it like that. Okay, moving on, we come back to one of our one of the speakers, one of the organizations we have had on the show before, Clear Community Web, with Casper Kennerdale. And this is a blog post that they published about the service they've provided as a response to the pandemic. And they describe Clear Community Web, which that it helps develop digital skills in older people, vulnerable or isolated adults and carers, primarily across Lambeth, Southwark, and Croydon. And they say at the beginning of the pandemic, we expanded our tech support service to provide virtual, i.e. Zoom, telephone, and doorstep home support, with full PPE provision where necessary, where restrictions allowed, and service users were comfortable. And very quickly, they found they were able to reach a wide range of new people. Those housebound before the pandemic and isolated adults, often with mental health problems, who prior to the pandemic may not have come to one of our services in a public space. So they've assisted people to download and install software such as Zoom to access support networks, council and NHS services, setting up accounts such as email and online services, troubleshoot issues, running virus checks, and helping people who've been scammed, which is great news to hear. They've also, however, provided support for people to access online funerals, bereavement services, as well as brokering conversations with utility providers and council support. So a huge range of things that they've done, and they've given us some of the numbers. In the period between March 2020 and March 21, they received 285 support cases, primarily referrals from local charities, housing, NHS/CCG partners, support and recovery services, libraries, and link workers/social prescribers. And they also saw a referral in rising referrals from grassroots organisations such as tenants and resident associations, food banks, and community kitchens. So they advertised the service with leafleting through doors, via food parcels, and on community notice boards, and they engaged with mutual aid groups and community activators in our immediate area. And this has given me ideas, Sweyn, for the work I'm going to be doing in Northfield with my new starters starting tomorrow. Hello, shout out for Cheryl and Stan starting tomorrow with me. Hope they're looking forward to it as much as I am. Back to Clare Community Web, they noted people experienced multiple barriers, and this mix was unique to the person. But underlying this, they have noted mental health, anxiety, and trauma, all having a significant impact on the ability to learn and adopt something new, accentuated, as we've often said, building on the fear during the pandemic. They also worked with many organizations, some of whom we've mentioned before, and they redistributed 45 smartphones, 32 tablets, 12 laptops, 18 desktops, which on average led to 3.5 hours of additional support to use the device in a basic way. And they have learned that it's as much a human challenge as it is technological, referring back to what we've said earlier in the program, as those who have not adopted technology and are the most digitally excluded require significant support. The same problem presented, they say, can take 15 minutes or 5 hours over 3 weeks to resolve, depending on the person and circumstances and the learning, I suppose, they've had before. And the wraparound service can be in excess of an hour. So confidence, support, working equipment, and connectivity need all to be in place. Building confidence in someone can be fragile and a delicate process in which you can't watch the clock. So learning to ask the right questions, they say, is as important as having an email. Is important as having an email is not the same as being able to use email. Very well put. They also say that information from referrers isn't always helpful, even with the best will in the world. People may try to explain what they think the problem is, but we focus on what they're trying to do, which are different things. So I think that was a really excellent blog post from Clare Community Web, explaining some of the many things we've come across in this show, and referring again to the need for skilled help, skilled patient help that's not going to give up, when the person doesn't seem to be getting it, because often it takes a while, doesn't it, to click.
Focused on what an individual is trying to do, rather than offered as some kind of generic training thing that may or may not. I mean, I wonder whether if all the referrers to Clare Community Web had their SCVO level 4, 6, or 8 qualifications, whether the referrals might not have been better. I think it's at that level that those qualifications, that knowledge is key. And I think it's probably most lacking there. There's lots of projects like Clare Community Web, and they do fantastic work that are focused on assisting people with the technology. But it's the referral into those things sometimes maybe that doesn't quite give the information that the originating organization, charity or statutory or whatever, maybe doesn't have the skills to identify what's missing and what's actually needed. So it's good that there are things like Clare Community Web who will actually take the time to go to the individual, find out what they need. And I it's great to see that being done. I mean, London is a huge place, but it's a fairly local service. So they're not trying to deliver services across the nation or anything like that. And this idea of turning up on people's doorsteps and saying, can I help you with this? Look, this is how it works. I think that's absolutely great. Because those people may well never get to the point of saying, I could go to the library to find out about this. And it's just different channels to meet and come to the people who need it. Different channels for different people and different requirements. So it's great. I also I'm just going to quickly share this slide, which is on the page. I took this share down a bit too quickly, but I liked this diagram of what the barriers and challenges were, people seeking help for this sort of stuff. And there's a whole range of stuff there that simply saying people who need this can go to the library just will not address. So it's great to see other approaches. However, this isn't, we never do down libraries on this show, ever.
No.
great stuff can be done in libraries, and maybe Clear Community Web can hand people off to libraries where appropriate, or libraries who are finding it difficult to support people could potentially have available to them somebody to take this approach on a kind of one-to-one basis, which libraries won't be always resourced to do. But look at those different challenges and barriers. Anxiety, people are embarrassed, people have said that they've forgotten how to learn, some people just aren't interested. There's memory loss involved, some people just have never been shown and would do it if they had been. Some people find the whole thing too confusing, and I guess that's where you have to spend more time with people to kind of cut through that confusion. Fear of scams and worrying that people have the wrong technology or they don't know what the technology is. Physical difficulties, we've mentioned that sometimes tablets are less good for older people with drier, less sensitive fingertips. The wrong person has tried to show them in the past. Well, we've all experienced that, and it can be as simple as a personality clash. I mean, I'm sure I come across as the last person that people want to learn. Some people want to learn from. On the other hand, some people seem to take what I'm saying reasonably successfully. And then, of course, there's the financial and the having the means to actually have the device and have the connectivity as well. So I think all of those barriers just show how important it is that there are multiple channels for people to access this stuff, and that even if people aren't interested just now, they might become interested as their needs change, as the technology changes, or as they learn more about what's possible.
Yeah, the one that really jumped out at me was the fear of scams, and it's kind of very present in my mind, because my mum says she's receiving an increasing number of calls on her mobile and on her landline that are scams, and she's very switched on and she doesn't respond to them, but it's annoying for her, and then of course her friends may not be so up to speed with everything, or for anybody else. And so it's a genuine fear, because some people do not have our best interest at heart and are out there trying to fool people and get money and other rewards in a negative way from people. So yes, it is something I think I'm going to actually use this article in my training with my new starters, because I think it captures so much that's so relevant.
It's a great overview, isn't it, of everything that you could say on the subject. Yeah,
absolutely. Great case study. So well done, Casper and team. And please keep going with the great work. I did say on Twitter I was going to mention them, so I'm glad to do that. And we love what you're doing, and please keep going as long as you can. Okay, so the next article was from the National Pensioners Convention, and their national organisation for pensioners. And they're concerned about the future. They say the future is digital, but should we have more choice? And they publish a campaign bulletin fairly regularly. This is number 165. And they've got a webinar coming up on the 1st of October to discuss how the drive to digital-only communications alienates older people who do not have, cannot use, or do not want to use the internet. And this panel on this talk will be joined by Caroline Abrahams, Charity Director of Age UK, and Dr. Jennifer Butte, founder of dementia charity Glorious Opportunity, and they'll be considering the current problems and possible solutions to greater inclusion. NPC members, generally, the article says they fear the push to digital only by government, businesses, and even the NHS, which they fear excludes them. It also infringes upon their rights, even preventing them using cash, as more firms demand payment by card or internet banking. Referring back to our previous story, many cite worries over online scams, while others simply cannot afford tablets and smartphones, never mind broadband or internet security. They also fear getting confused and afraid of making mistakes online, even after training. So again, the things that Casper said in that article with Clear Community Web are reflected again. NPC is also concerned about these sort of issues. So that sounds like one that we could recommend, and I might again recommend to my new starters. They can, by the 1st of October, they will be more familiar with people in the area and know what's of concern, so they might be able to contribute to that event. But it sounds like one that's worth tuning into, and it's good to see that a major organisation that's for pensioners in this country are having their eye on the ball about that matter. Okay, the next one I picked up, and I was delighted to see, because you so rarely at the moment, even now, see a funder that actually says, yes, we're going to fund something digital. And this is the Onward Community Fund, which aims to support local groups and projects in Greater Manchester, Lancashire and Merseyside, underpinned by their mission to make a positive difference in the communities we serve. Groups can bid for up to £2,500 for their neighbourhood. Examples could include IT training, youth projects, or community events. So the money is not just for digital, but it's one of their themes. And I've picked out that it's actually theme 3. I shouldn't pronounce that.
Team 3.
I should have let you say that, Sweyn. Is digital inclusion. They're saying being unable to interact and transact online has a direct and tangible impact on many key areas of everyday life. And they will work in partnership in our community to support customers to maximise their digital inclusion. So well done to Onward Community Fund for picking out that as an option for people to bid for. And £2,500 probably doesn't sound like very much if you're used to work in a big organisation, but for small groups, community-led organisations, voluntary groups, charities, they can really be creative in how they use money like that to work with other organisations, or to do something that again, we talked about niches earlier, that cater for a niche in their area.
What I like about this as well is that you're asked to address one or more of the following. So it's actually putting digital alongside the ways in which it's useful in a funny kind of way. It's kind of pointing out that digital is a tool towards looking at these other things as well. So that's great. It's a great project, great initiative.
Yeah. Okay, we've got a few more stories. Have we got time for one or two more before we?
One or two more, yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'd like to do the one, if you can switch down to the bottom of the list, which was digital. Where is it? Digital. Sorry about this, Sweyn. Digital support in North Tyneside. And I really like this one because it uses Pinterest. And I hadn't seen Pinterest used in this way previously. And the stories we've covered have never used Pinterest before. Are you able to pick it up? Yeah, there we go. So it's basically a selection box, if you like, of the different bits of digital support in North Tyneside, but it's actually on Pinterest. I think it's quite useful to see the kind of things that they're offering presented in a very accessible, friendly way. It's like shopping for digital support, and it's a new way of doing things. And this is an organization. I didn't actually pick up the name of the organization. I don't know if you can see it anywhere there, but they're saying we are entrenching our community, aiming to bridge the digital divide and create opportunities for people to get involved in the local communities. Digital, how do you do? Collection by Digital, how do you do? Yeah. So someone has put the time in to get all these things together to show it's available. I think again, it's one of those things where other organizations could do something similar.
That's a great simple idea, just to gather everything together that you're doing on a theme. I like that.
Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to say to you, do you want to pick up one of the stories, or do you want me to?
You just carry on, Pauline, because.
Okay. I'll go back up to the one that we skipped over then, which was from Ireland, about a guy called Michael Leahy who had sudden sight loss, and an app has helped to restore some of his independence. The headline said, "Within 5 months, I was completely blind." And this is Michael Leahy on a sudden sight loss and the app that restored his independence. And he's talking about an app, Microsoft app called Soundscape. He says, "Soundscape has been phenomenal for me. It's an app I can access on my iPhone. Then I put in AirPods and it guides me using whatever way my head is pointing. You make a mental app map by listening to the app's callouts. It tells you where you are and what direction you're going in. It announces if you're approaching a bus stop or a pedestrian crossing. You can search for anything in the app and it sets a beacon on where you want to go and then guides you there, announcing how many meters to go, a crossing or a path's end." So it sounds like an alternative to a guide dog, maybe. And a unique feature of the app is that if it's announcing something to the left, you hear it in your left ear, or on the right, it's in your right ear, which is great if you can hear, if both your ears are working. Sorry, I don't want to be nitpick, but it does happen.
Yeah.
Something straight ahead will even sound like it's being announced from in front of you. It's a 3D soundscape that builds a visual for Michael, he says. He says he can take he set regular routes, but if he takes a different route, it's not going to let me get lost. I got lost close to my home a few times before, so this is very reassuring. Another feature he says is that you can make an annotation, like a warning of a low-hanging branch or a pothole in the path, and the next time you walk that route, the app announces it, which sounds really helpful.
Yes.
So he says the app gets me from A to B, and he uses it to its full extent to get in and out to work or to meet friends. It's been a dramatic help. So it's good to hear somebody's story of an app that has really helped them practically.
That sounds really interesting. It's not something I'd ever heard of before.
Yeah. Okay, so I think, are we at the end of the
I think we are.
hour? Yeah. Okay. Well, that was really good. I think a good coverage of lots of different stories, including some with friends we already know and some new friends, hopefully, that we've made along the way. So we hope you've enjoyed hearing some of the stories we picked up and that they are helpful to you. And we wish you well, and we hope that you have a great week. Have a great week.
Have a good week, everyone.